The night sky over Stockholm was still. Then, the sound of rotor blades cut through the silence. In 2009, Sweden's capital was running on routine. Banks, security depots, armored transports, all locked into schedules that rarely changed. Inside one of the city's cash depots, millions in banknotes were stacked in vaults, sealed away as if nothing could disturb them. But outside, a small group of men lived with different clocks. They weren't street-level thieves. They were planners, disciplined, waiting for the perfect fracture in the system. The leader kept his circle tight. He spoke little, but his eyes gave the signal. The time was now. Years of frustration, debts, and broken trust pulled each man into this plan. They came from different trades, construction, mechanics, former security staff. But together, they shared one obsession: breaking into the most secure cash depot in Sweden. For weeks they watched routines: guards arriving, armored trucks leaving, lights switching off in upper floors. They memorized how long doors stayed open, which entrances were ignored, which windows stayed dark. Nothing was too small to note. At first glance, it looked impossible. The depot was fortified, ringed with alarms, and guarded against any ground assault. But the crew wasn't thinking about the ground. They were watching the sky. And the leader had just arranged the unthinkable: a helicopter. The idea was reckless, almost absurd, but that was the point. No one expected a helicopter. The leader secured one through a rental under a false identity. It was small, agile, perfect for lifting off from a hidden spot and slipping across the city without touching the streets. They chose an industrial yard as their base. Quiet, anonymous, with enough space to practice approaches at night. Each man had his role. One studied the depot's roof layout: vents, skylights, weak points in the structure. Another handled explosives, preparing charges strong enough to disable doors but precise enough to avoid fire. A third focused on communications, intercepting police chatter and jamming frequencies. The riskiest part wasn't the break-in. It was containment. Stockholm's police could mobilize in minutes. So the crew came up with a ruthless solution: plant decoy explosives at police stations, at key bridges, at major roads leading to the depot. They weren't meant to kill. They were meant to paralyze the response. Any officer would think twice before driving past a suspected bomb. The plan was mapped second by second. Lift off at 5 a.m. sharp. Land on the depot roof within 2 minutes. Blast through the skylight and rappel in. Collect the cash in under 15 minutes. Lift off before police could surround the area. Each man was told the same thing: if one link fails, they all fall. Still, there was silence in the group whenever someone asked the question nobody wanted to answer. What if the helicopter doesn't come back? September 23, 2009. Before dawn, Stockholm was quiet. The city's streets were nearly empty. At exactly 5 a.m., the helicopter lifted off. Its rotors thundered in the dark, slicing the air as the crew crouched inside, their faces hidden beneath masks. No one spoke. The pilot's hands were steady. He knew every turn, every second of this flight. 2 minutes later, the depot came into view. A fortress of concrete, steel gates, and cameras. On the ground, it was untouchable. But from above, the roof looked vulnerable. The pilot hovered, lowering the machine with precision. The skids touched down. In one motion, the team leapt out. Charges were placed. A blast ripped through the skylight. Controlled, sharp, just enough to open a path. They dropped inside. The alarm screamed through the building. Red lights flashed. The crew moved fast, weapons raised not to shoot, but to intimidate. Every guard knew the depot was rigged. Rumors of explosives planted outside spread instantly. No one moved against them. The vault doors were forced open with more charges. Inside, stacks of cash, bundled and ready for transport. Sweden's currency. Millions in notes, waiting like prey. The men worked with military rhythm. Bags filled. Straps tightened. Weight calculated. Above them, the helicopter's blades kept turning, echoing through the morning. Time was burning fast. By 5:15, the depot floor was littered with debris, alarms still screaming, guards frozen against the walls. The crew had what they came for. Now came the most dangerous moment: getting it all back into the sky, before Stockholm's police could trap them on the ground. The bags were heavier than expected. Bundles of cash stacked tight, almost too much for the helicopter to handle. The crew shoved them inside, breath short, movements sharp. Every second on the roof was a risk. Then came the first sign of trouble. Police sirens in the distance. Not close, but closing. The pilot looked at the load, then at the men. His eyes said what none of them wanted to admit. They were pushing the limits. If the helicopter was too heavy, it wouldn't clear the depot. It would drop back down, with them trapped inside. They made the call. Some bags were left behind. Fast decisions, no debate. Survival first. As they lifted off, the ground below lit with flashing blue lights. Units tried to mobilize, but roads around the depot were blocked. Fake bombs reported at bridges and police stations. Confusion spread through command. For precious minutes, no one could move. But not all cracks came from the outside. Inside the crew, tension built. One man shouted they should have taken it all. Another demanded silence. The pilot cut through them. He needed focus, or the machine would stall under the weight. Above the city, daylight started breaking. The sound of the helicopter drew eyes from rooftops and windows. Every witness meant more pressure. Every minute meant a greater chance of pursuit. And then the second crack. Police helicopters were grounded. Not by accident. Someone had placed a suspicious device at the hangar gates. But suspicion spread fast. The authorities realized the crew had planned deeper than anyone thought. Still the cracks were there. The wait. The panic. The split-second choices that left money behind, and left men arguing about loyalty. They had escaped the depot. But the city wasn't done with them. The helicopter touched down at a hidden landing site outside the city. The crew jumped out, hauling the bags into waiting vehicles. Engines roared. Within minutes, they vanished into Stockholm's back roads. Behind them, chaos consumed the city. Police stations scrambled after bomb threats. Bridges were sealed. Roads shut down. For nearly an hour, Sweden's capital was paralyzed. The heist was already being called the boldest in the nation's history. But boldness left traces. Investigators worked fast. Witnesses reported the sound of the helicopter. Surveillance cameras caught masked figures moving across the depot roof. And one detail spread quickly. The helicopter itself had been stolen from a small airfield. The pilot left behind fingerprints. The crew had thought they were ghosts. Instead, police began connecting names, addresses, histories. Former workers, ex-criminals, men already on watch lists. Within days, raids followed. Houses searched. Vehicles impounded. Inside the group, pressure cracked harder than any police raid. One man fled, fearing betrayal. Another was arrested on unrelated charges and faced with a choice: protect the crew or protect himself. Whispers of deals with investigators began. Trust dissolved. The press called it cinematic. The police called it terrorism. The men themselves, they called it survival. But the walls were closing in. Betrayal became the last weapon in play. And with every arrest, someone else's silence broke. Within weeks, the manhunt reached its peak. Early morning raids tore through safe houses. Suspects were dragged out, masks gone, names revealed. The mastermind was caught hiding in a quiet suburb. No weapons, no resistance, just the look of someone who knew the game was over. Not everyone was captured. A few slipped beyond Sweden's borders, vanishing with portions of the money. But even they carried a curse: cash too hot to spend, faces too known to risk the open world. The helicopter pilot faced the hardest blow. Tried, convicted, and sentenced, his testimony sealed the fate of others. He admitted the truth. It was never about brilliance. It was about desperation, about men cornered by debts and bad choices. The money? Only a fraction was ever recovered. Millions vanished into shadows, untraceable, unclaimed, a ghost fortune lost between borders and betrayals. For Sweden, the heist became legend. Not for its success, but for its audacity. A crew that believed the sky could shield them from the ground. A city stunned that its defenses cracked in minutes. And for the men themselves, the ending was the same as every great crime story. Cells, silence, exile. Final line. The helicopter lifted them above the law for 15 minutes. But gravity always wins.